Hi, I'm Bill Arnold. Thank you for listening to this podcast. There are many more podcasts available at myfaithradio.com. Your support makes this possible. Thank you. Oh, what a relief. You're not late. We're just getting started.
Oh, don't you know, it's the Bill Arnold Show. It's Bill.
And a warm welcome to the Bill Arnold Show. It is that time of the day. I can't wait for all that we have planned today. Dr. Glenn Pickering is going to join the show in just a minute. Hey, I don't know if you've downloaded the Faith Radio app. Go to your app store and check it out. I have to say, it's a beautiful app. I've got mine on my iPhone, and when you download it, you just can't believe how pretty it is. And you open it up, and it's very easy to navigate your way through it. And you can listen to Faith Radio live, or you can just check out the podcast. It doesn't matter where you go. You can download if you've got that Faith Radio app. So give it a try. And if you don't like it, it's easy just to delete it off your phone, but I'm pretty sure you'll keep it. So we're going to talk today about Romans chapter 5, trials, endurance, character, hope, and peace. These are all words that you're going to learn a lot about in this next hour. Dr. Glenn Pickering is my guest. Glenn, so nice to have you back on.
Oh, thank you for having me. It is always truly a joy to be on the show.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk a little bit about an old a passage from the Old Testament from Malachi chapter 3, verses 2 and 3 that talks about our struggles are part of the refiner's fire.
Right. Yes. Not necessarily a popular topic, but, I've been going through a lot of troubles lately. A while back I hurt my hip really bad. Was out of action for almost 10 weeks. And in the middle of that time, I found out that my prostate cancer had returned and that I needed to go get radiation treatment and hormone therapy, all of which I'm still in the middle of. So I've been thinking a lot about trials lately,
Wow.
as you might guess.
I'm so sorry about all of that.
Yeah, thanks. And so many people have been praying for me. Honestly, it just touches my heart how many people have been really.
Well, you just added a whole bunch of people who are listening to the program right now who will add you to their prayer list.
I would so appreciate that.
I know you would.
I mean, I've always understood kind of the power of prayer, but these last few years, when I just see how prayer really transforms the situations I've been facing, it's just been so powerful. So now when people say, I'm praying for you, I don't just say, okay, thanks. I think, oh, thank you.
Yeah.
It's such a powerful thing.
Mm-hmm.
I've been just seeing so much evidence of that. So anyway, in the midst of my little trials and tribulations.
They're not little, Glenn. They're not little.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. In the middle of my very real trials and tribulations, I was reading Romans 5 a little bit ago, and it talks about how, rejoice in your trials, which, that's a pretty funny sentence all by itself. It says, for your trials produce endurance, and your endurance produces character, and your character produces hope, and your hope produces peace. And I've read that probably, I don't know how many hundreds of times, and I kind of think, but somehow it's sort of been a cliche to me almost, like, right. But lately now I've been just really, really giving a way more serious prayerful thought to each one of those steps and how important they actually are to our faith life. And so I'd like to just kind of go through each of those steps today for a few minutes at a time, if that's okay.
Oh, I love it. Let's get started.
Okay, so sometimes people say things to me like, I work a lot with couples on relationships, and, I'm the relationship doctor after all. And oftentimes people say, well, Grant, if I was the right person, marriage would be a lot easier, right? Isn't it supposed to be easier than this? And I think, no. For two reasons. One, being married, if we're married to the right person, will push us to deal with stuff of ours that we would have never had to deal with before. So I grew up in a really shy, quiet family, never really spoke up for myself or anything. And honestly, if I had stayed single, probably I would still be telling people, yeah, I got to learn how to speak up for myself better, except, I never have. But by being married to someone like Glenn who's so intense, I mean, I've literally had to get better at speaking up. It's no longer just something I, should do sometime. It's like, no, I really, really need to get better at that because Gwen's going to be intense about what she thinks. And I don't have to be intense in that same sort of way, but I have to be real clear about what I'm thinking and why I think that so that we can actually be a team and figure out what to do. And in that process, both of us get stronger. I get way better at speaking up. Gwen gets way better at being a teammate. And the struggle makes us better, makes us stronger. And so we could think, my job is to go through life and not have struggles, which honestly, secretly is what we all kind of wish. But I just see those struggles really, really push us to become our way better selves, like more the self that God would want us to be. So now when I read that passage in Malachi about the refiner's fire, that we're put through the refiner's fire, I think, right, that's a powerful image because, well, two reasons. One, if you take a lump of gold with a whole bunch of impurities in it and put it through the refiner's fire, nothing happens to the gold. But you burn off everything that's not the gold. And you're left with something that's a very pure version of what it was supposed to be all along. So we're going to circle back to that in just a little bit. So that's part of what happens in that. But I'm also just struck by this. A fire is a really intense picture. To say we're going to go through the refiner's fire is to say, Glenn, life's not always going to be a picnic. There are going to be times when it's really intense, when you're really feeling the heat of what you're going through. And of course, we can read the beginning 3 sentences of pretty much any psalm and find out, this is a very real thing. Life can be really, really hard, and there are times when we feel like, what is happening? And yet somehow it all is about bringing about our ability to become more and more and more our best self, which is just, it's been fascinating for me to see that.
Mm. Glenn, when you were talking about your personality and your wife Gwen's personality and how
Right.
you start to bring out parts of each other that wouldn't have come out otherwise, could I call that a healthy friction? Is that a good
Yes.
description? Because
Yes.
friction's always good at some point. I mean, we spend our whole lives dealing with friction, but healthy
Right.
friction is produces something good.
Right. And I grew up in a family where they would have said they were peacemakers, but they were actually just conflict avoiders, which of
Yeah.
course is not the same thing, because they're afraid of that friction. And so I grew up afraid of that friction too, thinking somehow that was really bad. But honestly, um I wrote somewhere in my notes for today that our struggles are not a sign that we lack faith or that we're not living a godly life. In fact, our struggles are actually part of the plan, which seems crazy, but I promise you that it's actually true. The struggles are part of the plan.
And I don't disagree at all. I think we were talking about this yesterday on the show. How do you grow more in times of comfort or in times
Right.
of suffering and distress?
Right. Yeah, there's an old saying that says God comforts the afflicted and afflicts the comfortable.
Yeah, that's so true.
And, and so it really does push us to grow in ways that if it wasn't for the struggles that we're going through, we probably wouldn't do. So I really I mean, God wants to bless us and God wants our life to be amazing. And God understands, and the struggles are part of getting there. They're not a sign I'm on the wrong track or that I'm doing it wrong or that I don't have enough faith, which honestly, gosh, I've been told that so many times in my life, some version of that. Well, Glenn, if you just had more faith. Well, but what if having more faith means God is at work in the middle of this struggle?
Okay, Glenn, let's just say that I'm on board that the trials will produce good things in me. But if I come to you and say, Glenn, how about I get a break just now and then from the trials?
That is a thought I understand a lot over the last few months.
Yeah.
There have been times when I really felt like, golly, this is more than I can do, Lord. And and this is the part where I've just been really seeing the power of prayer. And there have been so many little teeny places where for a little while I felt better, or a friend called me out of the blue and it felt great to talk to them, or one of my clients who heard that I was struggling sent me a little text and said, Glenn, I'm thinking about it, I'm praying for you, and we'll keep you in your prayers, let me know how you're doing, or something great will happen in the life of my daughter. I mean, it's just like, even in the midst of that, there have been so many small things that are like little points of light in the middle of the struggle that have been really, really helpful to me. And I believe that that's true for all of us. We can get so caught up in the struggle that that's all we see, that we kind of forget to even notice all the little miracles that are also happening around us at the same time. And so I would urge any of you who are going through a struggle right now, not to deny it, that's not helpful, but to also notice, yeah, but that's not the whole story. There are also all kinds of little teeny miracles happening all around you. And I would literally prayerfully beg you to pay attention.
Mm-hmm. Glenn, when you're going through this challenging time in your life, do you have colleagues that you can also talk to? I mean, people come to you for counseling and advice. Are there people that you go to as well?
Yeah, there have been so many people, not in an official capacity, but in an unofficial capacity. And I'm
Okay.
surrounded by a lot of people in my life who do ministry of one sort or another.
Yeah.
And they have really made a point to be there with me, to teach me, to even just say little things to me like, Glenn, mm, I'm here for you if you need to call me. Or, um, so many people, they knew that I have this whole radiation therapy. I got to go get radiated every weekday for 8 weeks. And so many people saying, Glenn, if you ever need a ride, let me know. So there have been people administered trained me and, sort of big picture ways, Glenn, I'm there for you. But there have been so many people administered to us in the little ways about offering to have rides and bringing food over to us and just even watering the flowers in Gwen's garden so she didn't have to do this, so she can take care of me. It's just,
Wow, that's
it's
beautiful.
so much support around
Yeah.
that I just, and my old self would have been in a time like this and thought, how am I going to get through this? That would have been my thought. But now I really get that thought's really, really not helpful. I don't get through it. We get through it.
Wow. That's
Yeah,
important.
it is so important.
Yeah.
And my old self, if people would have offered to help, probably would have had some knee-jerk reaction like, no, I got it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But I think, I got what? I got nothing.
Yeah.
It's like, why would I not let people be helpful? So I am just getting better and better saying yes to all the help that people offer in big ways and little ways.
Yeah. Well, Glenn, people would want to bless you. So then the question is, why would you not allow them to bless you?
Exactly. That's exactly. I so often think we give people compliments and they blow them off. We ask if we can help them. They go, oh no, I got it. I just think there's one thing I've been working on mostly my whole adult life is to be getting better and better at being what I call a gracious receiver.
Say more
Because a
about that.
big,
I think I know what you mean, but what is a
yeah,
gracious receiver? How do you respond?
well, I just think I have this picture a lot in my head. Like a friend of mine knows it's my birthday coming up, so they give it a lot of thought about what present they want to get me. They get an idea. They go to a bunch of different stores to try and find just the right one. They wrap it up. They drive over to my house. I knock on my door. They're standing there with a present for me in their hands, and I say no thanks, and I shut the door.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, see, when everybody reaches out, says, "Can I help you? How can I be with that?" And we're like, "No, I got it." Or gives us a compliment. Hey, Glenn, that was really great. Oh, yeah, but I had a lot of help, Like, we're not letting people minister to us. And
Mm-hmm.
those of us who do ministry are terrible at that. We are really bad
Yeah.
consistently at letting other people minister to us. And so I just, part of being a gracious receiver is just getting better at saying, yes, thank you.
Yeah, the early church in 1 Corinthians 14, everything they did was for the edification of one another. So
Right.
if we're
Perfect.
edifying one another, where in Scripture does it say, shut everyone down who tries to edify you?
Exactly. That's right. Every person in their life has something to offer. It's really striking how true that is.
Yeah. All right, Glenn, let me take break number 1 here. We're talking to Dr. Glenn Pickering today. We're in Romans chapter 5. So if something has come to your mind that you want to share on the text line, whether in a form of a question or a comment, you can do so right now. That text line is open, 877-933-2484. We'll continue to lift in prayer Dr. Glenn Pickering, who's got 8 weeks of radiation, and that doesn't sound like the funnest thing in the world to do, but we will get him through that and pray and pray and pray. We'll be right back in just a minute. We carry each other's burdens. Please know you can bring us your prayer concerns and we will pray. Share your prayer requests with the Faith Radio team by texting or calling 877-933-2484, or share your prayer requests with the Faith Radio staff and listeners at myfaithradio.com. Welcome back to the show. Dr. Glenn Pickering is my guest, and we're always I always love the way the ministry at Faith Radio grows, and we're always getting new listeners. And Wyatt, it's exciting when people, they write in, they say how much this is impacting their faith life, and there's brand new listeners today, as a matter of fact, isn't there?
Today, James and Samantha.
Yes,
listening for the first time today. So we're grateful for that. Thanks for coming to Faith Radio, and pray that you're getting encouragement and everything you need from the conversation that you're hearing. That's wonderful.
And in Romans chapter 5, we learn a lot about trials and endurance and character and hope and peace. I have a feeling one of those things is something that you need more of today. Maybe more hope, more peace. Maybe God is working at building your character, and he will do that through trials. So we have to pray for endurance, and that is the topic today with Dr. Glenn Pickering. Once again, Glenn, let's talk about some of the trials that will produce endurance.
Right. I love how Paul says this in this order. I really believe with my whole heart that he gave us a lot of prayerful thought. So he said, we rejoice in our trials, which I said a few minutes ago, always makes me smile to myself, like, oh yeah, sure. Because trials produce endurance. And the first chapter of James, the second verse, basically says the same thing. Be glad about your trials because they produce what they call persistence or steadfastness, perseverance. And I think, right, because a person who struggles, doesn't give up, and then succeeds, even partly, becomes way more persistent. In other words, it increases our endurance. Like, this is why when a little toddler, for example, takes their first step and falls down, they look to us like, how should I think about this? And if we're like, oh, no, honey, are you okay? They start crying. And they just sit there. But if we look at them and like, hey, look at that, you took a step, that's so exciting. They can't wait to get up and do another one.
Yeah.
See, I just think if we're willing to succeed and just keep at it until we succeed, even just partly, even just in a beginning sort of way, it encourages us to be more persistent, not just in that situation, but in the future, which is so important because everything God does, and you know me, I'm super impatient, so I want everything I want right now. But what I see over and over and over again is that God is always bringing us to exactly what we need, one step at a time. And so if I'm going to actually be on a godly path, I need to be persistent. And so every trial where we give it our best and succeed, even partly, helps us be more persistent, which is a super important part of being on the journey. So I talk a lot with people about celebrating small steps. Like on Friday, I'm getting those radiation treatments. There are 38 of them. Friday's number 38. And so I asked my family members if they'd be willing to go out to eat with me on Friday and celebrate that was at number 30. And of course, we're going to go out and celebrate, and that would be so fun. It's not that it's done yet, not like hey, now I'm all perfect. But it's a great little step. And I just thought, yeah, let's just celebrate that that's where I am. And I just think it's that celebrating those small steps that keeps us going. And when we do keep going, that's what produces endurance. Because if I try some things and I keep going at it and then it works out in the end, it gives me more confidence next time that even if I'm struggling right now, it's all going to work out in the end. So every trial, if we rise to the trial instead of giving up, increases our endurance, increases our patience, or as James says, our perseverance. Whereas the person who never struggled or just quits all the time becomes less and less persistent over time. Because, see, they're in the back of the mind think, oh, this will never work. A person who will learn to be persistent thinks, okay, this is going to work. So even if they fail at first or don't quite get it, they just keep working at it, and then eventually it does work. A person who really doesn't have that level of endurance or persistence, their secret thought in the back of their head is this is never going to work. So they try one thing sort of half-hearted, it doesn't work, and they think, see, I knew it wouldn't work. And then they just quit. And so what Paul is trying to say is if we meet those trials, don't give up, don't quit, just keep working at it. it increases our level of persistence, not just in that situation, but in the future, so that in the future struggles, and there will be future struggles, we're going to be more persistent. We're going to come at that struggle with the attitude of, we can figure this out. I don't know how we're going to, but I know that we can. And that person then is so much more likely to succeed.
Glenn, I've always been slightly amused with the parents when they have a toddler and the toddler falls and the parent would say, "Did you fall down and go boom? Did you fall down and go boom?" And they're just kind of gentle and loving, and I think sometimes God is that way with us. Did you fall down and go boom? Because he's there to help us back up again and to encourage us again and to take the next step.
Exactly. Don't give up.
Mm-hmm.
I just think over and over again, there's this profound message that sort of underlies all the scriptures about don't give up. Because God's work really is a gentle series of steps by one at a time. So if I'm looking at, hey, I want a perfect outcome tomorrow, it's like, well, see, but that's not how anything actually works.
Mm-hmm.
Everything God does is part of a plan that grows me deeper and deeper and stronger over time. You know, those really tall trees that I can see out my window as we're talking right now, they didn't get that way overnight. They're very gradual, very solid, building deeper and deeper roots, stronger and stronger branches. And over time, that tree gets so big and so strong, but it didn't get there overnight. It got there by being persistent. And so God has a big preference for us to be persistent, and our trials really do produce endurance or perseverance, as James would say. And so in the end, everything's either going to kind of build, and we're going to get more and more confident, more and more sure of ourselves, better and better being persistent, more and more endurance, or less and less. And so that's why James says in the end, so we're in the end either going to be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing, because all things come to somebody if you just keep working at it, or we're going to see ourselves as the victim. And at the end, one of those two things are going to be true. And if you talk to an older person, even just for a few minutes, you're going to notice it's not hard to tell who's who. You ask somebody who really has learned persistence over time, how their life's going or how their day's going, and they're going to say, well, you know, this has been a little hard and this has been a little hard, but it's been really great. I've learned a lot. My friends have been so supportive because they really get this is just a little blip in the road. But if you talk to somebody who really hasn't built up that level of persistence, they're going to talk to you about all their troubles and how awful their life is and how underlying theme, why does this keep happening to me? And I just think, see, we need to understand every single time we have a trial and we choose to rise to that trial, it encourages us and builds our persistence and our endurance in a way that really, really leads to a stronger character, which we're going to talk about in just a second.
Okay. When a person has not struggled a lot or they quit readily, they're going to have a hard time. Just like you said, they're going to probably have a little more drama in their life.
Yes, a lot of drama without any progress.
Yeah. Boy, that's not good.
No, one of my favorite writers in the field of sexual addiction, which, you know, I've worked for a lot of years with guys coming out of sexual addiction, the writer is Patrick Carnes. He said one thing every addicted person has in common is that they confuse adrenaline for passion.
Say more.
Well, see, I just think it's like what you just said. Like, if I quit, then I just make a big drama about everything. I'm always talking about how terrible things happen to me. I can never get what I want, blah, blah, blah. But see, if I actually have a vision for my life and I want to become a more and more godly guided person, then it gives me a sense of purpose, which we'll talk about in just a second. And so I gain a clear sense of purpose. Like I have a vision, I have a sense of my life leading somewhere. And people whose life leading somewhere don't need the adrenaline and the drama and the trauma to fill the gap because they don't have a gap. But the people who quit, who don't really have a purpose, then there's sort of this gap in their life. And so then they fill it with adrenaline and the drama and the trauma because it gives the illusion of a purpose.
When I work with men in drug and alcohol abuse, I think to myself, you don't know a lot about temptation because you don't fight it. You don't resist it.
Right. They don't even know they have another choice, honestly.
Right.
Which I mean literally. I just think every addiction just means I have no longer made conscious decisions.
Right.
I don't have a beer once in a while because it really actually sounds good to me right then. I have a beer because it's 5 o'clock, and I always have a beer at 5 o'clock,
Mm-hmm.
for example. You know what I mean? I'm no longer actually choosing. The beer is doing the choosing for me. So, whereas if we get persistency, we get better and better at choosing, knowing, hey, if I have a vision, I'm moving towards that vision. And if there's some setbacks, well, I pick myself up and I dust myself off and I start moving again.
Mm-hmm.
So trial produces endurance, awareness to stay with something, to stick to it.
Mm-hmm.
And that endurance is what produces character, Paul says, which makes so much sense to me. Because I just think a character, or strength of character, means I have a clear sense of who I actually am. And it's amazing. Did a fascinating study, actually at the University of Minnesota a while back now, about kids with high self-esteem. And what they found is that every one of those kids had some adult in their life other than their parents who thought they were great, who helped them see, no, you could do amazing things with your life. And the kid thinks, oh, really? Which is why every one of the call narratives in the scriptures, like so in Judges 6, where God calls Gideon to do some mighty things, God starts out by saying, hail to you, you mighty man of valor.
Yeah, hadn't been in a fight in his life.
Yeah, no. His family is nobody. He's the runt of his family. He's
Right.
hiding in the wine press so the Midianites don't come and steal his wheat from him.
Right.
I mean, it's just like, but see, God sees a mighty man of valor.
Yeah.
And unless we're willing to also see that picture, we can't do the things God asks us to do because we don't think we can.
Yeah.
So part of our character is getting a clear sense of who we actually are and what we're actually capable of.
So to throw this in, Glenn, the power of an outside relative, an uncle, an aunt, a coach, somebody that comes alongside in addition to mom and dad and speaks this mighty truth into people's lives makes a significant difference.
Yes, huge.
Yeah.
And not in a egotistical kind of way, like, oh, I'm better than everybody else, but more in like internal strengthening kind of way. Like, I really can do the things that God has put in my heart. And instead of other people thinking, yeah, I'll never be able to do that, their first thought is, okay, what would I need to do that? That's a different question. That's a qualitatively different question.
Mm-hmm.
And so as our trials produce endurance, and then as Paul says, endurance produces character, we get a stronger and stronger and clearer sense of who we are. As we get more and more persistent and more we follow through on the things God puts on our heart, we start to understand just what's really possible in our life and how big that actually is.
Mm-hmm. Glenn, right before we head to the break here, let's talk about Jesus and the person with one talent.
Yeah. See, everything builds on everything. So at the end of that story, and people don't usually quote this part, he says, so take the talents rather than one and give it to the one who has 10, because to those who have will more be given, and to those who do not have will nothing will be given. All they have will be taken away from them, which sounds so brutal. You can see why nobody preaches on that. But it's not supposed to be harsh. These are just giving us a warning. Persistence and everything else builds and builds. So either I get more and more persistent, more and more sure of myself, more and more strong, more and able to follow through, and I get better and better doing that and see myself as a person who can do that, and I get really strong in that. Or if I'm a person who quits, more and more I just see myself as somebody who can't have it. I just don't believe anything will actually come to me. I get real resentful about what people do. And I just really, in the end, see myself as a victim. That's why being persistent in one situation is so important, because every situation when persistent makes me more and more persistent at a deeper and deeper level, so that at the end of my life, I'm really a persistent. Or if I don't do that, at the end of my life, I'm a victim. And Jesus is just trying to say one of those two things are going to happen. Nobody ends up with a C+ life.
Mm-hmm.
Which is supposed to motivate us to do the hard work of continuing to be persistent and to grow and to develop that depth of character.
So true. Glenn, let me take a short break. You're listening to Dr. Glenn Pickering. You can learn more about him at his website, which is drglennpickering.com. He spells his first name, Glenn, with two N's, GLENNPICKERING, drglennpickering.com. He's got lots of goodies there. You should check it out. We'll take a break and come back, and we'll continue our discussion on Romans chapter 5. Dr. Glenn Pickering is my guest, and I just was over at his website, drglennpickering.com, and I see that he's got a relationship rescue kit, and you can get the free kit right now. And he says, quickly understand what's actually going wrong in your relationship and then get clear, practical steps to start fixing it right away. You can also join the free community there. So I encourage you to do both. Head over to drglennpickering.com. We're going to continue our discussion in Romans chapter 5. Glenn, this has been great material today, as always. So let's talk about how endurance is going to produce character. I've always said I've always wanted the character of my grandmother, but I just didn't want to go through the hardships she went through.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's interesting. If you meet any person who right away when you meet them, you think, wow, they're amazing. I promise you, they've gone through trials. So when Paul says in Romans 5, we've been talking about that, we should rejoice in our trials because our trials produce endurance, which we've been talking about. And our endurance produces strength of character, helps us know our true self. Because our true self is so capable of so many things. And those people like you're talking about with your grandma have gone through enough trials, persisted in choosing the transformation option, which is always available to us. And in that process of consistently choosing that, their character just gets deeper and deeper, and stronger, and more powerfully rooted in Christ. So I think this, which, you've heard me say sort of jokingly on the show before, that I feel like God is always saying these two things to me. Glenn, I love you exactly as you are. And I insist that you change.
Isn't that a message we're all trying to hear from God?
Yes, because I just think it seems contradictory, but it's really not.
No.
See, we would say the same thing to a kid. Hey, I love you as you are. You don't have to earn my love. You have that already. I adore you. You're great. I would want for your sake, not to please me, not to get my approval because I already adore you. I would want for your sake that you keep getting smarter and smarter and deeper and more mature and more Christ-like in your life, because that will be such a blessing to you. And so God is always saying those two things to me. Glenn, I love you as you are, and I insist that you change, not so that God loves me, because that's already done, so that my life becomes more and more meaningful. In other words, my character develops in the way that God had in mind right from the beginning. I become more and more that person. And it talks to us in 2 Corinthians about how we become a new being in Christ, which of course is true. But I think people get that messed up, like somehow when I accept Christ, I become somebody else. And I think, no, what Paul's trying to say is trial produces endurance, and endurance produces character. I become a deeper and more pure, just like the refiner's fire, a more and more pure version of the person that God had in mind from the beginning.
So if we persistently choose transformation, which is what I would encourage all of us to do, that's right. When our character grows.
Right, exactly. So trials produce endurance, being patient and consistent when applied to transformation, then leads to this really depth of character, that you become a person that has great depth, whose life actually means something.
Mm-hmm. So say more about that, Glenn, because I think this is a really important moment in this discussion, because we either are pursuing transformation or we're right. Staying in a comfort zone, which, like you say, God says, I love you just the way you are, and I insist you change.
Right. Yeah, see, in our comfort zone, if I have the trials, which that's non-negotiable, we will, and I don't choose to be persistent, I choose to see myself as a victim, then at the end, my character, instead of becoming more and more myself, I just become more and more of a victim. I literally become less and less like the person that God had in mind for me. So my character not only doesn't develop, I actually sort of become less and less of the person I'm supposed to be. Whereas if our character develops, that doesn't mean I become somebody else. It means the character that God gave me, the depth of right down in my gut, who I actually am, gets stronger and stronger and stronger, and it shows up more and more consistently, which of course leads to more and more powerful forms of ministry.
Mm-hmm. Glenn, what about the person that comes into your office and says to you, I thought if I was married to the right person, everything would be easy.
I say, yeah, I thought that too.
Okay.
But 44 years later, I'm so convicted that that's exactly the opposite of what's true. If I'm in a relationship with a person, it's just so easy. We never have any conflict. Nothing ever comes up. So 44 years later, we still actually connect the same way, communicate the same way, decide things the same way, interact the same way, treat other people the same way, and have exactly the same faith life that we had when I was, 19. Well, that wouldn't be great. I don't
So,
want to be a 73-year-old walking around with a 19-year-old mentality.
yeah. I've
So,
quoted this on the show before, but Lewis Smedes says something. My wife has been married to 5 different men, all of them me.
right. Yes, exactly. And that has to be true because if we really, really are persistently choosing a transformation option, that's that endurance part, we really do become more and more the person that God wanted us to be. And that will look a lot different over time. I look back now to the person I was and I think, wow, how did I get here? Whoa.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Talk about how
I mean,
God
go ahead.
talk about how God builds us. I mean, we want to build our foundation on a rock, on Him.
Right.
How does He build us?
I think honestly, God builds us by helping us to see who we actually are. That's why the persistent part and the transformation part is so important. The more and more confident I get in my skills, the skills that God gave me from the beginning, the better I get at using them. But it's like, again, it's that God builds us one step at a time. If I'm willing to not give up, to be persistent, so I get more and more endurance over time. So more and more when there's a trial, instead of thinking, oh, crud, not again, I think, okay, well, I'm obviously supposed to learn something here. So God, help me to see what that is. Now, so our trials do build character as long as our response to the trial is to ask, how could I have done that better? I as part of that community that you mentioned just a couple minutes ago on the website, I have little dating tips and marriage tips and things like that. And one of my dating tips is if you're out with somebody on a first or second or third date and you talk to them about how their previous relationship ended, and they tell you, well, the last 3 people I was with, they started out being really great, but they turned out to be jerks. I said to them, you need to understand, you're being set up to be the 4th jerk.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're going to find out, oh, that's the person that always blames everybody else for their troubles. It's always somebody else's fault. And if you're the person who's in a relationship with them, you walk around thinking, oh my God, that might be true. I'm really terrible. I'm an awful person, which means you get bitter and resentful about that other person for making you feel like that. And sure enough, you're the 4th jerk. So our trials do produce persistence, which makes us hang in there long enough to choose the transformation option instead of giving up. And if I choose the transformation option, then God just keeps growing me one step at a time. But if I blame everybody else instead of being repentant, and the Bible talks a lot about the importance of repentance, if I choose to see the log in my own eye, not the speck in your eye, and I'm really asking God to help me now that I see that log to be better, God will start working on that immediately. And I literally become a better and better person, not by avoiding making my mistakes, but by acknowledging them and using that as a reason for making myself want to be better.
And Glenn, I like earlier in the show you talked about small steps, and I
Right.
think that's something that's a thread that I think can run through the whole hour because
Oh, yeah.
all along this conversation I see the power of small steps.
Right. Which is how God does everything.
Yeah, I really agree. God works in so many non-obvious ways, and
Oh my
I
gosh,
think we
that's
sit
really
around
yes.
waiting for the obvious thing, and God's so busy working with non-obvious things in our life that we sometimes just miss those.
Honestly, literally, if we're not watching for them, we don't see them at all. Sometimes people say, Glenn, does God still do miracles? And I think, yeah, if you're paying attention, not sarcastically, because I get the miracles that God does in our life are little teeny things every single day that move us in a certain direction.
I
And we
agree.
realize, looking back, oh, there's been this whole direction this whole time that God's had me on.
Mm-hmm. I sometimes lay my head on the pillow and go, Lord, thank you for a very common, ordinary day.
Thanks. Yes, that's
I mean,
right.
sometimes common, ordinary days are the best.
Yeah,
And
and help you to see.
I never take them for granted. I look at what's on your
Right.
plate right now with all these treatments. Those are not common, ordinary days. These are different days for
No.
you.
Yes, I'm looking forward to common ordinary days. That's really
Yeah.
true. And to not take those for granted, like you said, but to understand even those days are a gift. It might not be like, oh my gosh, this big miraculous thing happened today, but just being able to have a day that was sweet and nice and good and things were just good. It's
Yes.
like, oh, see, that refreshes our spirit. That by itself is its own gift.
Mm-hmm. And to recognize the little simple pleasures and to see God's goodness in his creation and God's goodness in someone's smile or their eye contact with you. You sometimes just
Right.
feel God connecting us to other people in the world when you
Yes,
experience those things.
right. And if we're going through a hard time, we can get so caught up in how awful my day is that I literally don't see those. And so when I talk to people going through troubles like I've been or who are grieving, I say, I don't want you to pretend you're not troubled or you're not grieving, but I would ask you to also, not instead, also just notice all the people smile at you, all the people ask if they can help, all the people shake their hand when they see you, all the people tell you that they're glad to see you, to just notice and take in how much, even if in the middle of your troubles or your grief that you feel alone, how much is just not true.
Yeah. Yeah, that's living the good life, I think. Glenn,
Yeah.
let me take a short break. We're speaking to Dr. Glenn Pickering. Head over to his website and see all the goodies he's got over there. One is the Relationship Rescue Kit. It's a free kit. You can get it right now. He says, quickly understand what's actually going wrong in your relationship and then get clear, practical steps to start fixing it right away. That's drglennpickering.com. We'll be right back. You might be the kind of person that goes to Paris and still listens to Faith Radio on the app. And I'm thinking of a particular couple from northern Minnesota. Or you might be more like the person that just goes into the next room in your apartment and listens. Well, the good news is using the app is just as easy in both places. Downloading the free app is crazy easy. Just text the word app to 877-933-2484 and then click the link. And if you happen to be in Paris, there is a coffee shop, but you should see the prices of biscotti. They have gone through the roof. I recommend avoiding it. Dr. Glenn Pickering is my guest. We're talking about Romans chapter 5, trials, endurance, character, hope, peace. Glenn, let's talk about how character produces hope.
Right. Well, if we persistently choose the transformation option, so we really start to even get a picture of just how big our life can be and how much God really calls us into the abundant life, then of course, just like Paul says, then that kind of character produces hope. Because instead of thinking, oh, I'll never get what I want, the more I live that abundant life, the more I choose transformation, the more I can see that God can transform all situations in amazing ways. And that gives me hope that even if I'm in the middle that something seems like a struggle, it's going to be good. Not just okay, it's going to be good. There's something's going to come out of that that's like, wow. And once you've chosen the transformation choice often enough and really let God guide us along the way, so we just keep growing and growing in our faith, then we just get more and more hopeful, even in the middle of our troubles, that somehow this is going to be okay.
Mm-hmm. And hope does not disappoint us.
Right. And hope does not disappoint us, which is the cool thing, because see, once I really actually have the courage to hope for what I want, I start asking God for what I want. See, the difference between a victim who thinks I'll never get what I want and a sanctified person who knows that God always wants to bless us and always is blessing us. Then when there's something I want, I turn to that God who wants nothing but good for me and ask for what I want.
Mm-hmm.
But a victim that thinks I never get what I want, it doesn't really matter. Nothing's ever going to work. They not only don't get what they want, they don't even ask for it.
Yeah.
And it's so important to understand. Jesus says in Matthew 7, ask and it shall be given unto you. Same thing we see in Mark 10, that, Bartimaeus is standing in front of Jesus. Blind beggar stands in front of Jesus. And Jesus said, what do you want? And, I said to you before, that makes me laugh all the time. Let's see, Jesus, as a blind beggar standing in front of you. What do you think he wants? But until he says, I want to receive my sight, then Jesus said, great, done. The instant we ask, God says we're going to bring about the thing that we're asking for, and hope gives us the courage to ask for the thing we want next, because God has blessed us in so many ways along the way already. It gives us the courage to ask for whatever it is we need right now, which in my case is strength and patience. And so I'm asking for strength and patience all the time, and asking for God to pray for that for me. And I'm sure that that's going to happen, because my hope will not be disappointed. People ask me sometimes, Glenn, does God answer prayer? And I think God always answers prayer. There's never a time that God doesn't answer our requests. Now, sometimes God answers them in ways that are so different than what we're expecting that surprises and amazes us. I love that part where Paul says in Ephesians 3, ask and, God will give you what you wanted way beyond anything you could have even thought of or imagined. Like, yes, we will be blessed in amazing ways. And because I go through the process of going through my trials, developing endurance, produces that strength of character where I really believe how big my life could be. That produces hope in me that life could really keep on being amazing, which then when it gets to be bad, I turn to God and ask for help, because I know for sure that God wants to help me. So that character produces hope, and that hope does not disappoint us. God says, ask and I shall be given unto you. Sometimes when people come to me for counseling, they say, Glenn, it's so helpful to us. You teach us a lot of stuff, but you're also so hopeful. You give us hope. And I think, yeah, I'm not hoping they can get better. I know they can get better. You know what I mean? It's not even like an arrogant thing. I just know God does amazing stuff. If you're willing to follow the steps they teach you, God will make your life so much better. Not because I'm amazing, because God is amazing, and I just figured out what the steps look like. So I give them a lot of hope, because I'm not just thinking, oh gosh, I hope their marriage turns out better. I know for an absolute fact that they're willing to do the stuff I teach them, their marriage will be transformationally better. Not because, oh, Glenn Pickering is so amazing, but because God always answers prayer. There's never an exception. I've been through enough trials and experienced enough endurance and enjoyed that character and developed that hope that I know I will not be disappointed in my asking, and I know they won't either. And then my hope then helped them to be hopeful. And the cool thing is that every time we're hopeful, our hope is so infectious in such a good way that it also creates hope in others. That in Proverbs it says, hope brings life. That cheerful heart is a good medicine, but a crushed spirit drives the bones. And I think, right. Us being hopeful, having a cheerful heart, really, really knowing that God will not disappoint us, will always bless us in amazing ways. That gives us a certain lightness of spirit that people see in us, and they think, Kyle, how do you have that? And we get to talk to them about how God has been so powerful in our life, and we become this really great witness. So I just think, and that's what brings us peace in the end, which is Paul's final point. Knowing that God will love us, that God is always transforming us, that God will always be with us, and will, of course, bring us those things that we need, and is actively in the process of doing that right now, that brings us a sense of peace. Because instead of thinking, oh my gosh, I wish so bad I could have this, I wonder if that's ever going to happen. It's like, no. God is leading me. God will take us on a whole series of gentle steps. Not only is God going to get us to what I'm asking for, God is already in the process of doing that. And if I look around and see all the little teeny things, miracles happening around me, I just get convicted just how true that actually is. And there's a sense of peace about knowing I'm not going to be okay. I am okay.
Really, really good stuff, Glenn. And again, I'm sorry that you're going through what you're going through, but you've just let us all know that we can put you on our prayer list, and then God will meet you in your time of need. And we're going to just stay prayerful and trust God for what He's going to do, His miraculous healing.
Right. Which we don't even know how it's going to look. We just know it's going to be good.
We just know it's going to be good. Yep. All right, Glenn, thank you so much for joining the program. And I wish you well the rest of the day, and my best to Gwen.
Thanks for having me on. You take care.
You bet. Dr. Glenn Pickering has been my guest. Head over to his website, drglennpickering.com. He spells his name with two N's, GLENNPICKERING, drglennpickering.com. He's offering this really nice relationship rescue kit. You can get the free kit right now. And it says, quickly understand what's actually going wrong in your relationship and then get practical, clear steps to start fixing it right away. You can also join his free community that's got tons of resources. Hey, I don't know if you've downloaded the Faith Radio app. Go to your app store and check it out. I have to say, it's a beautiful app. I've got mine on my iPhone, And when you download it, you just can't believe how pretty it is. And you open it up, and it's very easy to navigate your way through it. And you can listen to Faith Radio live, or you can just check out the podcast. It doesn't matter where you go. You can download if you've got that Faith Radio app. So give it a try. And if you don't like it, it's easy just to delete it off your phone, but I'm pretty sure you'll keep it. That wraps up our show for the day and for the week. Thank you for supporting Faith Radio. See you next week. Thanks for listening. Programming like this is made available through your support. Information available at myfaithradio.com.